You boys look like a weird heavy metal band.
Yes, we are a band.
Really?
Yeah.
So what do you play?
Symphonic post-apocalyptic reindeer grinding Christ abusing extreme war pagan Fennoscandic metal.
Right. Really interesting.
Big mistake, Dinglefuck. Now, drop the gun, or she'll drop it for you. All right. Let's give the ladies some room to work, shall we?
Come on.
Is that the best you got? Come on.
DJ Nubis
And DJ Neko.
here with you, Meltar Radio Podcast. You just saw an exclusive clip from Boy Kills World. Neko and I
Exclusive. Where'd you
just-
get it?
from the internet,
Nope.
but that's what they say. It's an exclusive clip. But we just got out of the theater seeing this film, and I'm going to break down a little bit of what it is, who directed it, so on. Then we'll kind of get into our review, which will be spoiler free. We will not give any spoilers. It's only been out a couple of days. It is
Spoil the hell out of it.
Directed by Moritz Moore. Cast consists of Bill Skarsgård, Famke Janssen, Jessica Roth, Yayan Ryuan, and Andrew Koji are just a few of the names in this. Plot is a fever dream action film that follows Boy, a deaf person with a vibrant imagination. When his family is murdered, he is trained by a mysterious shaman to repress his childish imagination and become an instrument of death. So obviously, early on, this film it has a combination of like good martial arts, some gore, a little bit of comedy.
Some really good camera work too with the martial arts scenes.
A little bit jumpier than I usually like, but it's not bad at all. In fact, we know that in some degree, Sam Raimi had some part in this as well. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting approach to the movie itself because Skarsgård never talks. We know that he, at some point, not only just deaf, but he loses, like his tongue gets cut out or something.
Yeah, you see a scene of it as the movie progresses. It's never like he sat down and wrote out to people, I can't talk and I can't hear.
He did it like one time to a cop. He's mute and deaf, and cop's like, okay, we'll just beat it,
But this was when he was little.
Mm-hmm.
It's just interesting to see how this movie played out. It was just such an interesting combination of martial arts, a good story, but still, you know what this kind of felt like? This story, or the movie and all, it had like the same feel of Ready Player One. Does that?
Yeah, I can kind of get that because basically, there's like this. It's not really so much a true nostalgic, but
he also has like that inner monologue going on,
Right.
and
because he grew up with his sister and they're very close, and they would sneak away to play video games. Now, what they're in this like
it would be like fight player one,
dystopian
fight.
society where
Yeah, at first I was like, "What the fuck is this? A Hunger Games?"
right, and you got this family, this very wealthy family that's running the show. They're called the Vanderkoys, and obviously the one girl there that's fighting Skarsgård's character is the daughter of the high class family or whatever. But
Their claim on the city is that they came in, and when they came in, they brought order to the city. They got rid of all the roughness and all the bad things. But what they did every year is they do a culling
yep,
once
just
a
like
year,
Hunger Games.
like the Hunger Games, but
Only you don't get to fight for it.
yeah,
You have to,
you just get
get
shot
picked and killed.
in the middle of the street.
And that's basically where Boy, we see early scenes where his mother and sister are killed by Famke Janssen, who's like the top tier of the family. And so that kind of starts this ball rolling of revenge. And so the shaman played by Yuyan Ryan is the one that's training him, to get there. But there's also a lot of like drug use, like old school peyote or whatever that they're using.
The shaman,
hallucinogens and stuff.
You saw the kids selling it out in the street,
Right? Yeah. So so early part of the film is just where Boy's like training as a young kid, but he has like what the shaman would call like a distraction with these like this version of his sister, a young sister, like who is no longer with him, but she pops up throughout part of the film, and she still treats him kind of like a kid brother and everything, but he's supposed to like forget the past and go forward for his
revenge,
right? So the movie, as I was telling Neko, it kind of starts off a little slow. It starts slow in the sense that there's a lot more comedy involved between the narration in his head, and of course, as we run into a character name, I forget what Andrew Koji's character's name was, but he's more comedic in this. If you know his name, you know him from the series The Warrior with Joe Taslim, and then we haven't got to season 2 or 3 yet of that, but I know him from that, and he's in this, but he plays a little bit more of a comedic role in this. So the martial arts parts are kind of scattered a little bit early on, but it starts to pick up as the film starts to roll.
Especially like they have really good training scenes with the boy when he was younger. It all like it's kind of like any movie. You're starting
Van Damme stuff.
Yeah, like you got the whole like
pushing shit up the hill.
Got the punching until your knuckles bleed to toughen up your hands. But just like any movie that we've watched, you start to realize like there's the purpose or whatever behind everything. And that's what I really, after watching the movie and you get to like the major plot points, you're like, I understand why this happened. And because before you just think it's like okay, it's a training montage, or okay, it's this, or okay, it's
standard
that
stuff.
Just like the whole like peyote and drug use kind of is like he's sitting there blowing smoke into a kid's face, like what the fuck? And so it's weird, but as you start seeing what's happening, you're like, wow.
Yeah, as the story continues to unravel as the movie goes, and you start understanding like why this stuff's taking place and what purpose it serves. I don't know much about Jessica Roth, as she plays June 27, the girl you saw fighting in the scene there. But she was really excellent in this as a martial artist. The choreography is something that Neko.
Now, was that her doing the martial arts too?
I'm assuming. I would have to look up her. I think she is a martial artist. I don't know, but it seems like it's her. Although it's hard to say because she
wore the helmet the whole time. Every time she was like really fighting,
right? But yeah, as the movie goes on, like I was telling her, it's like I was kind of like what is the big stink about this? Because I went on the Rotten Tomatoes just to look at the scores, and it was like around 60% for each audience and critics. Now, you can take those with a grain of salt with any movie, but it has some validity. So I'm like, well, what is it that's holding people back from really liking this outside of people that we know? Like Brandon came out of it.
He's like, if you need a good martial arts fix, this is
Yeah,
what you
he
need
came
to
out of
see.
it and he like was saying, dude, this shit's lit. And so I'm like, all right, well.
And that's kind of how we went into this. Like we
wanted, trust him a little more.
Yeah, we wanted a nice martial arts fix. We've been watching a lot of horror lately.
Yeah.
A lot of horror, and nothing wrong with that.
Nope.
At all. But
it's our bread and butter, but we do like our martial arts stuff.
And our kaiju and all of that. But we've been really hitting it hard with horror and really hitting it hard with the different Godzilla films. There's a channel on, I think, Pluto TV that plays Godzilla all the time. So
24/7.
We'll just pop it on sometimes while we're doing chores or just laying in bed because.
But they have like the Fist of Flicks too, which is another station that's just all martial arts movies. So the Pluto free app on your Roku, if you got it, it's a good one to have for a lot of that. A lot of like old horror station or channels that you can tune into.
They played like the old
Halloween, even new stuff too though.
Like, I know that there's a channel on there as well that does like retro TV. So you'll see everything you can think of from old school stuff. Like it could be something like just random too, like Chips, But
yeah, this in some ways this film, has a little bit of a comic book feel to it, even though it doesn't really dive too much into it, but it does have a little bit
like
of that.
The coloring.
Yeah. And so so basically the thing is you guys stick with this film because early to mid part of it, I'm kind of like, well, I don't understand. Like it's good, but I'm not sure if I'm gonna call it great. But then as things unravel through the rest of the film,
like when the revenge plot starts,
then I start
out.
my feelings about the film change drastically. Like I start to get like, oh, okay.
And I also like you understand how sheltered the boy was because now he's a man.
Yeah.
And he was always just doing whatever the shaman told him. So when he is trying to get into life and realizing like what's happening, and it was just interesting. And
there was a breaking point where more people were dying from the colon and stuff, like stupid reasons, because the siblings of this rich family were irresponsible and stupid at times. So they
were turning it into a TV show,
basically,
and just like the Hunger Games did. Like the Hunger Games, the whole purpose was, win money for your district, be like the representative. But you still had
people who were pushing back, but of course it costs lives, and boy just had enough of it. And even though the shaman didn't want him to, because his training wasn't complete, so to speak, and so but the boy's like, no, I gotta go do this. It's now or never.
Yeah, because they were just in the street like trying to grab people because it had to be 12 for whatever reason. It had to be 12 for the show, and they do it in the studio in the weirdest fucking way you can think.
Yeah, they treat it like a kid's show. Like you got like
people are clapping,
the pirate and Frost or the goat, the Frost goat or whatever.
The Frosty, it's whatever the cereal was sponsored. So they had all the characters from the cereal. So that's what I'm saying. Like it kind of felt a little bit like
almost like Running Man, only he didn't do a lot of running.
We've seen so many of these dystopian, futuristic. You've got like Hunger Games. You've got what's that other one? I can't think of it. It was another book series.
They had Battle Royale.
But that
was a little bit different. It wasn't really so much for entertainment.
The other one, I didn't even really. Well, this one was, and you like.
Oh, you're talking about Divergent? And
yes,
like that?
Yes, that one. So we're used to seeing this, but this was kind of like there was no reason, they did
just power.
It was just power, which made it interesting because you Divergent, Hunger Games, they all have kind of like a purpose, backstory. This is the reason that we do this, blah blah blah.
I think for Hunger it was like basically
there was
food
a war.
Shortages.
Yeah, well, no, there was a war, and they're like, and this is what we do to keep from the uprising, so you can have your little war games, and then anyway, it was just like a family, and I'm like, where the fuck are they? Because like they're in the jungle, and then there's a big city
Yeah.
inside the middle of the jungle, and that's like where the boy always like that's where the shaman and the boy lived. So it's just an interesting kind of like concept, a little different take.
Yeah, and the acting was really good in
Mhm.
this. Everybody was good in their roles and stuff like that. Famke doing Famke. Skarsgård is probably one of the best roles I've seen him in. Like
That just proves like he can't talk. He just made a couple of like "Rah!" a couple of times.
the
His
battle roar.
facial expressions, the way he fought,
And I'm sure like Ruyan had a lot of influence on the choreography, fighting styles, because he's obviously the shaman teaching Skarsgård's character, so you see a lot of his fighting style within that. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like it really picked up. Like I said, if you're gonna go watch this, don't fret if you feel like it's not quite hitting the mark right away, because it does build, and so that's kind of a neat little thing about the movie is that
the whole revenge thing when he goes through and he's like, I'm taking down this family, and he's like, I'm on a team. That was like the thing that was really cute. It's like
because the narrator voice,
he didn't have like a friend ever except for
Right.
his sister.
So he Koji's character is like, we're a team now. You set me free. We're gonna get out of here, and you're gonna be the guy. I'm gonna get you where you need to be. And he's like, a team. And he smiles, and he doesn't say anything. He just smiles.
Yeah, it's the inner monologue the whole time. And who did the inner monologue voice? Did you look that up?
Let me see. That's a good point. I kept meaning to look that up
because he did such a good job, and it was funny because in his inner monologue, he's like, it's been so long, I don't even know what my voice used to sound like, so I picked this really macho voice to be my inner monologue. And what'd you find? Anything good?
Well, it says H. John Benjamin was the voice of the boy, but I don't know if that's. It could be him doing that. That's about all it really tells me. Let me see if I can. All cast and crew.
Oh, look, from producers of Evil Dead and Barbarian.
Yeah, Barbarian wasn't all that great, but
Barbarian is one of those other movies where I know, like,
voice of shaman. That was kind of funny because he would say, "You trash," when he's not really living up to.
No, no, I was saying about Barbarian. And I was kind of saying this like about that movie, Don't Worry, Darling. Like when we were talking about,
it must be just the voice of the boy, I guess. We see going on there.
It's like Barbarian. I just watched I had to watch a couple of times. It was like.
It wasn't that confusing for me.
It was. I'm not saying that it was confusing. It was like, it was intriguing enough that I wanted to keep going back to see if I could figure out. And there were some parts of that where, like the backstory of the dude in the basement, where I'm like, that itself could be a horror movie. Like, if you just took his backstory about abducting these.
Oh, that's interesting because, like,
what's up?
Initially, she wasn't in the film, but initially, I guess Samara Weaving was listed to supposed to be in the film, but
no, I bet you she might have been the sister.
Could have been. But I want to do that. I do want to look up Jessica because I am curious.
I really like.
Because she did a really good job.
She had that very Kill Bill style. Martial arts with her
and the yellow coloring and stuff.
And that's what it kind of felt like. It was like a little nod to Kill Bill. I personally have never taken martial arts, so I don't.
It's funny, she's been in a lot more rom-coms than anything.
Oh wow. She's pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still love martial arts, like even though I've never taken it so that's why I find watching martial arts really interesting, because I appreciate what they do and how they do it.
She
but
is a black belt and took taekwondo. Taekwondo, yep.
wow, you can
So,
tell.
mhm.
Good for her.
I always wondered though, like when actors do movies like this. So depending on Skarsgård's background and Roth, like if you have a chance to work with someone like Rhea, and like I'd be like soaking up knowledge because obviously he's helping teach them the choreography as they're fighting and what to do and what not to do. So if I was ever like in the martial arts like that, I'd be like, yeah, you're my sensei. I'm gonna learn from you, you know. Yeah. So anyway, what is your rating that you would give this film?
So we're not looking at something that's like Oppenheimer, where it's won all these awards, or looking at it like Jurassic Park, or we're looking at it as a kick-ass martial arts film with a really interesting story. Sometimes you don't even get a good story in a martial arts film. It's always about revenge because that's just how martial arts movies are.
It's all about revenge.
But
how funny would that have been though, that final scene if they just said the end?
And that's
that would have been typical martial arts.
We got our revenge. The end.
Yep.
We're going off into the sunset. Which they kind of did. Went off into the sunset at the end.
But it just wasn't abrupt. Like you usually expect just real abrupt, like the last
kill scene. The end.
Cha! The end.
Ta-da! So that being said, that's why like it's gonna be like a 7.5 for me, not because it's not good, but because I think there are better martial arts movies out there that are still quite entertaining. Maybe, I bet you if I watched it again, I'd probably give it an 8. So I'm leaning between 7.5 and 8, because the story itself really drives the movie like more than what a typical revenge story would be. And I like that. It's not just a martial arts movie. It's a interesting concept twist on dystopian worlds. And it's not that's why. Like, I didn't hate the movie. I liked it. I also don't know that I was saying to you in the car, like I'll keep it at 7.5. I don't know how much rewatchability it had for me. And I make that in my judgment on movies. It's a big deal for me that it's rewatchable. That's why I'll go back to Don't Worry Darling. Some people were calling it a huge pile of trash, and I'm like, I rewatched that movie like
but see, I don't really
times.
have a rewatchability with that like you do, but it's not a pile of trash by any means.
I don't think, is that also a perfect movie, or does that deserve a 10? No, but it bumps my score way higher to like an 8.5, maybe a 9, because I'll turn it on if I see it on, or if I see it in my list, I'll watch it again and again and again.
For me, yeah, this is rewatchable for me. And that second half of the film is a big part of that. Like I was probably where you were throughout the first half of that film. Like I was really wondering why it was not clicking with me. But then as the second half started to unravel.
Yeah, like when the whole revenge plot starts unraveling and it got
happening.
real interesting.
Yep. So I give it a 9 out of 10. I do like this a lot. Probably will own it. But yeah, if you're someone who starts watching and you start finding yourself like maybe walking out, don't do it, because the second half does pick up and it does have some nice little twists and stuff in there for you. So, all right. Well, next week, I don't know. I think, let me check my schedule because I know we're towards the end of the month. So right now, I think I am going to hook up with Poet again next Thursday just to go over the draft for our teams. Maybe talk a little bit about some of the other teams that drafted over the weekend. Friday, I have a cinematic synergy with Kevin Lambert from the Entertainment Headquarters. And I'm going to try, if Neko is available that evening, to do another Classic Reflections. I think our next one up is Wasp, the self-titled record.
I thought we were going to do the Wisconsin Death Trip.
Oh, she's right. That's what it is. We changed. It is Static X. Yep, thank you.
Remember, I discussed it with you, and you're like, "Wow, this is really." You're right. This has like a lot more.
Yeah, no, it is. It is Static X. I don't know why. I had to make sure I put that in my notes.
I'll do Wasp again. We'll do another.
Well, we'll
classic.
do it down the road.
But I have not been allowed to pick classic.
That's what she
reflections
picked,
yet.
though.
Now, granted, King Diamond would have been one that I picked. Like,
But she probably would have
regardless.
picked Abigail.
I would have picked Abigail because that also with songs and albums, re-listenability for me, when it comes to a full album, it would be Abigail. For them, it would be like a couple of songs. Like, but it doesn't matter. It's still great, and I'm glad that I listened to it. And I do love when he pulls out some bands that I haven't heard of, and he's like, "Okay, let's talk about this band." And I'm like, "I've never heard of them." And he's like, "Oh, well, I got their album and it was on my top 100 of 2021." I'm like, "Well, let's sit me down and get me in. Lock me in like I'm in the Matrix." What did they say? Was it lock in or load in or something? What they would
lock it in.
What was it when they put it in their heads?
Oh, I don't know.
I forgot what they said. Oh, crap. I haven't watched Matrix in a while.
Anywho, thank you all for the support. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content, and then we will see you next time on the Milltown Radio Podcast.
It's gonna be my new thing.
The hearts.
The hearts.